is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
I don't know why this is freaking me out, but Alex isn't wearing headphones right now, and I don't know. I feel like we're live without a net or something like that. I don't know.
Does that bother? Like, this is gonna sound bad. Like, old school radio people?
No, like it doesn't like real bother me.
That sounded so off.
I mean,
Donnie, I'm not calling you old at all.
Well, I am.
No, you're retro.
No, I'm old.
You're retro,
dude. Let me. I don't want to. I turn 49 very soon, and I remember specifically when my dad turned 40. I thought, it's over for this guy. It is. He is old. So now I am 9 years past that, and it's freaking me out, man.
Yeah, but
like, I don't love it at all.
You don't look a day over 55, so
That's true. That's true. You know, Johnny, if this makes you feel better, I don't turn 39 for 4 more years. So,
Come on, all right.
Almost there.
I don't know about you, but that felt like a cheap shot.
Johnny, we should get our own podcast. Alex,
No, don't kick me out, guys. This gives me meaning. Don't kick me out.
Well, guys, it's great to see you. We have an absolute freaking crap ton to talk about.
I thought he was just going to stop at crap. Like, Donnie.
I mean, it could be some days, depending on. But, all right, so over the course of the last couple of weeks, I haven't been at work much, which has been nice. So I have had a lot of time to watch hockey, listen to shows, the whole thing. And it seems as though that the national media kind of has this Blues team, not everybody, but some, as a little bit of a darling. As a little bit of a, hey, this is going to be a team that's going to make a run. This is going to be a team that's going to challenge for a playoff spot in the West. Jim Montgomery, boom, 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 boom. Now, you guys know I have been waving the positivity flag since Jim Montgomery came in. The team definitely plays different. The team definitely looks different. That said, guys, I like what I see sometimes, but they're not stacking wins together at this point in a conference that is incredibly competitive. So what I'm almost kind of wondering here, maybe leading off with this, are the Blues running out of runway? You know what I'm saying? Like they have got to get on a run. And I thought after the Winter Classic, I thought after the Ottawa game, I was like, all right, we're putting them together. Mm-hmm. And then here comes Columbus. Yep. And that pissed me off. And then last night, you know, man, I know Minnesota is good. I know that we were going in to Minnie, but damn it, that is a game that you got to friggin' figure out a goddamn way to win. And I'm just not quite sure that I'm feeling as positive as maybe I once was.
First of all, I want to know how much a crap ton weighs, because in school, I remember the chart. It said 2,000 pounds equals a ton. How much is a crap ton?
It's a Canadian scale, actually. It hits a ton and then a crap ton, but you just don't know what's in between. It's a scale. It's kind of like Fahrenheit versus Celsius.
Well, we got a lot of it to talk about.
Yeah, a crap ton of it.
Let's start with this.
They would say. I don't know about you, JR. What Donnie just described was a 500 hockey club. Like, where you win a couple of games and you're like, oh, here they come. And then you lose a couple. The Minnesota one actually bothered me more than the Columbus one. I know people look at Columbus and they're like, oh, it's a terrible team. Columbus is in a playoff spot right now.
Yeah.
Like, Columbus, and they were, I think, the 6th best team on home ice at the time that the Blues played against them. They were averaging 4 goals per game on home ice, and their power play was clipping at 31%. Now, should you have won? Probably, but that's not the Columbus team that you lost to last year. This is actually a better team, at least on home ice. The Minnesota one pissed me off a little bit more because they didn't have Kaprizov. They didn't have Spurgeon. You were in Minnesota for 2 days, so like there was no travel that you had to worry about. And sure, they probably would have liked to be home, but then they also lost Brock Faber in the first 5 minutes of that first period.
Right.
So they were down to 5 defensemen. You got Philip Gustafsson pulled from that game because your offense beat him, and then I don't know if you sat back for the rest of that game, but it just was a little too easy for Minnesota compared to what that second period was. And that's kind of the narrative and has been the narrative since that Buffalo Sabres loss, to where you get a couple of good wins, the Nashville one, the Detroit one, and you're like, all right, you're feeling a little bit.
Here we go, momentum.
And then you lay an egg.
Right.
And then you get a couple more, and then you lay an egg. And then you kind of get your confidence struck, and then it's like, well, now we got to get back to it. They're not running out of runway because there's still 42 games left, or 40 games left to play. But I don't know if you've looked at the schedule, but the next 14 are easier. And then it's the Four Nations tournament, and then the final 26. It is another gauntlet for this Blues team.
Donnie's not going to like this, but you know when people do that Super Bowl pick thing where you put all the helmets in a hat and you pull it out, and it's $100 a guy, and you get the team that could win the Super Bowl. Yeah, I got the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I got the Chiefs. I knew it. Here we go.
There it is.
Guys, what did I do? I'm just curious. I was so looking forward to seeing you guys, and then I'm getting friggin' hammered from friggin' both sides.
Dare.
But anyway, go ahead. You pull the Chiefs helmet.
Yeah, that's a crap ton of criticism, man.
If at the beginning of the season you had a hat and there's a bunch of things in there and you pulled out, anytime they talk about the Blues are inconsistent, they're going to win a couple and lose a couple, you make money off of that. You win the pot.
Oh, you'd be rich.
Like if you pulled that out at the beginning of the season, you'd be jumping up and down. Yes, like this.
I'd be paying other people's car payments.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's to be expected now to this level, right? I mean, lately. We've seen these great performances, like Ottawa. Did we not say that was one
the
of their
best one that we've seen this season?
Games of the year, and then we're talking about sprinkling in losses to Buffalo, to Columbus, which give them a little credit this year compared to years past. And then last night you got Minnesota on the ropes, and all those things that you guys just mentioned that were in the Blues' favor. Guys, I go back to Minnesota's fourth goal. Alex, I know you're doing pre and post. You probably talked about it. I was at a hotel bar till 1:30
he was.
in the morning in Minnesota.
The legend. That's Donnie.
But that fourth goal, Colton Parayko's got the puck. He's doing his thing where he's surveying, right? Well, earlier in the game, you're making the quick short passes. You're getting up the ice. Well, now, and I'm not saying bad decision. He saw a guy. He saw Brandon Saad. He sends it through the neutral zone. Saad doesn't skate into the puck, and it gets turned over.
Yeah.
It's quickly back in the Blues zone. Robert Thomas has a battle over there on the wall. He loses that. Zuccarello hits Middleton. He scores, and it's, 4-4, I think. That was the fourth goal. That's the 4-4 goal. So you're going to have, bad breaks like the Broberg broken stick that made it 5-4, but it never gets to 5-4 if you don't have that sequence that led to that 4-4
Well,
goal.
and that's what Montgomery said after the Minnesota one, and it's the first time I've heard him, genuinely disappointed with the team's performance. Like before, it's been like, yeah, we played well and just didn't go our way. We got to tighten up a couple of things. That Jim Montgomery after the Minnesota one was like a sad dad where his kid got his driver's license and he got into an accident because he was texting. Like that's what it was, a very disappointed father tone. But the one that stuck out to me, the quote that stuck out to me was, we weren't strong enough with our puck decisions. And you had asked Justin Falk about that in the locker room in the daytime. And he even said, we've got to be strong with our puck decisions. We've got to be quick. We can't hesitate. Well, not just that fourth goal that tied it up, but the goal that made it 4-3 by Eriksson Ek at the end of the second period, that was another decision where you were in the offensive zone. You lost a board battle with the puck on your stick because you didn't have two guys around it. It was two Minnesota players, and I think it was Robert Thomas that lost the puck. And then by that time, you were standing idle, the players were, and so you had an odd man rush the other way. It was just very uncharacteristic of what we've seen from this Blues team because they've been one of the stingiest teams in terms of goals allowed in the NHL in the last 7 games. And then all of a sudden, you're just making poor puck decisions, you're losing battles, and you're allowing odd man rushes. Like, they got beat in the neutral zone against Minnesota. That was the biggest thing for me.
All right. Well, all right. I hate to do this. I don't know that I'm not even sure that in the entire time that we have done this podcast, Jeff, Jamie, you guys, that I have ever been critical of Jordan Bennington. But boys, I don't think that he had the strongest of games last night, and it doesn't seem like he and Hofer lately are playing as well as the Blues need them to. And I don't mean to put that all on these two guys because I understand the litany of things that have to go right to support your goalie the correct way. But sometimes you need your goalie to kind of stand on his head, and that was not the night last night for Benner.
Yeah, Donnie, the best way I can say it is I think that Jordan Bennington, like you, has been really good the past couple years, even the first couple months of this season, outstanding. Even look at the Winter Classic, makes that big save on Taylor Hall. Blues go back and score. Now it's 4-1 instead of 3-2. So he's been really good. I think if anybody prior to a week or two ago looked at his save percentage and said, oh, there's no way he's been good. Yes, he has. But I agree with you, and here's the way I'll simplify it. Being in the arena, watching him play his last couple games, last night in particular, there's a shot, and it's in the back of the net, and you're like, that really went in? Like, that's not him. That's not the type of goal. And then you watch the replay, and you see that whether Parayko's standing in front or this guy, if it's not deflected, redirected, where he has no chance, then usually he stops most of them. And it just seems like there's been, even when he's been playing well, there's been that type of goal that's gotten past him where that's not him.
So just to talk about both goalies, because I like that you said Joel Hofer as well, because, I mean, we saw him against Columbus, and it didn't look the prettiest. And so I was curious because I never want to be so critical of a goaltender because, like, I don't know the nuances that go into it. Like, you see it on television or you see it in the game, and you're like, well, that can't have gone in. That was too easy of a goal. Mm-hmm. And then you find out it's like, oh, no, this guy's positioning led to this, and he was looking over here when the puck got over here. So I was texting with a former goalie after that Columbus game, and I was like, hey.
Marty Britter.
Yeah. Look, man, I'm not trying to name drop
Curtis
over
Joseph.
Here. I'm trying to name drop over here, Grant Fuhr. Anyway, so I was like, I just want to know, like, that third period against Columbus, like, what happened? Because it looked like it was a bad night for Joel Hofer. But am I missing something? And he said, no, you're absolutely right. He just wasn't tracking the puck well. That's what it felt like with Jordan Binnington. You look at those first two goals, you're originally like, how the bleep did John Merrill and Zach Bogosian beat Jordan Binnington? Some of it, to me, was like, man, I don't know if you noticed it, JR or Donnie, the defenseman, Colton Parayko, stopped right in front of Binnington. Like, if you look at the moment the shot released from the stick of Bogosian and Merrill, Parayko was like this. And it's like you're just setting up a wall against him. But it just felt like he wasn't tracking it. And when you lose confidence, you're not tracking the puck well. Mm-hmm. And then those easy shots go in. I mean, yes, he hasn't been great. And yes, I think both goaltenders probably cost you at least 2 points in those games against Columbus and in Minnesota. I mean, when you score 4 goals a game, you're probably expecting to win those. But I also look at the Minnesota game and the 3 saves that Binnington made in the second period to allow the Blues to score the power play goal. So, like, in a game, you look at it like you can't be giving up 5 goals. Totally understandable, but that's the game score sheet. If I go back into the game and find little pieces of it, Binnington made 3 saves in the third period to allow the Blues to take the 1-goal lead, and then the team kind of shut down in front of them. Yes, the puck gets past the goalie, and he's the one that's got to make that stop. But to me, it feels like there are layers to Jordan Binnington's game. Like, before I can blame the goalie, you got to look at certain other areas of what takes place on the ice.
Yeah. And that makes all the sense in the world, too. And I think one of the things that's become the most apparent to me in doing this podcast is, and this is kind of silly to say, but I guess I just kind of underestimated at the beginning everybody doing their job to assist the goaltender. And a lot of times, Benner and Hofer have been the ones that have saved the Blues bacon. And there needs to be times where the defense and the forwards or whatever, they, pull one out for Binnington and Hofer. So, and I also understand, too, that with goaltenders, there's ups and downs over the course of a season. You do go on a cold spell and things like that. It's just kind of alarming because, Binnington especially has been the guy that has saved our ass more times than I could even begin to count.
Agree. And I'll say this, because we've said a lot of great things about the defense recently, right? Like Cam Fowler's come in and done a great job. It trickle-down effect. Now you got Suter, third pair. He's played well. But I don't think the past couple of games have been good defensively. Like Cam Fowler had a tough night last night. And I never did get a chance to ask Jim Montgomery after the game, but Parayko and Falk started that first shift of the third period.
Yeah.
And then I think they gave up that first goal that Minnesota scored, and I was kind of curious why they were out
juggling because it started with Suter and Falk. And some of that was probably Suter playing in Minnesota and Jim kind of trying to awaken the beast with the fans booing him. But it started with Suter and Falk. There were a couple of instances that Broberg and Parayko, like that's one thing that they do a lot of, which I know you do that on the offensive side. Like Ken Hitchcock, sorry to name drop again, Donnie, but Ken Hitchcock used to tell me all the time. No, he'd say it all. He did tell us on BK and Ferrario, like as a coach, when it didn't look good on the forwards, I changed it immediately. Like I didn't even give him a chance. Is it good to do that on the defensive side? Because I feel like you want the defensemen to have that chemistry together because they're the most important ones of knowing where the other is going to be.
Yeah. And, to me, there's different situations. You got a D-zone start, start of the period, whatever you want to do. There's definitely reasons that I'm not, familiar with that lead to those pairs. But, 2 righties, and I believe it was to start the period, and they were kind of both caught on the one side of the ice and left the shooter open. By the way, I got to tell you, being around Darren Pang for all those years,
nice.
Talking about name dropping.
Name drop, yep.
So Darren, he's the greatest, right? But just because he's in those circles, he'll say a lot of names that you're like, wow,
Right.
a lot of Gretzky, a lot of this and that. And so anyway, we were at I think we were at a hotel bar one time, and I took a piece of paper and I wrote like 10 famous names on them, and then I ripped them all into, their each own piece, and I followed him. And he's walking out of the hotel, and I just started throwing him on the ground. Like, hey, you're name dropping all over the place. He's got like 10 names behind him.
I interviewed him for the Winter Classic, and we were talking, and he said something about how he was out for Wayne Gretzky, and he goes, "Sorry, Alex, Robert De Niro always told me never to name drop." I'm like, son of a banger.
That is so amazing.
His
man.
Wikipedia page says he's best friends with Steve Eiserman. His
His
Wikipedia page is name dropping for him.
Dude, that's fantastic. So it was also really great. Anytime that you get a chance to watch those games on NBC or on the national coverage and you get to see Panger,
Yeah.
I miss him so stinking much, man. Just what he brought to the broadcast was fantastic. So, all right, guys, we are, I think, about 6 or 7, maybe 6 weeks away from Four Nations.
Yeah, second week of February, I guess, is what that is.
And then I believe the trade deadline is right after.
No, I think it's
It's
beginning
right
of
before.
March, isn't it?
I don't call it the Four Nations. I call it the reporter break.
JR calls it Cancun. Cancun in 3. 1, 2, 3. Cancun.
Lower Arnold.
So, guys, will the Blues be active at the trade deadline? And at this point, I would have to think it's a weird spot because you hear everything that Doug Armstrong is saying is about making the playoffs this year. But then you would think that you would have a couple of pieces that you might be able to sell in Brandon Saad. So what are they going to do? And if they do something, what do you think they're looking at?
Well, I think, Doug Armstrong spoke to the media yesterday, and he had some thoughts on this. He said, look, the team always tells us, they're competitive, we'll help them. That's what his message has been every year in this situation. So, I think how the next couple of weeks play out is going to determine what he does. We asked him about Dvorsky, and this is kind of a side story that goes back to the big story that we're talking about, is, hey, will we see Dvorsky? And he says, last year when the team got to the point of the season where they weren't competitive, we were able to bring up some younger players and play them. If that situation happens again, but we hope it doesn't, then maybe we could see Dvorsky. So I think this is all predicated on what's going to happen in these next few weeks. I do think that, let's just hypothetically say the Blues go 9-1 in their next 10 and really paint themselves in that playoff picture, that they will look to find ways to upgrade. Now, if the cost is too high, Alex, we talked about this on BK and Ferrario, I don't think the Blues are going to pay an exorbitant price to try to upgrade this team and give up these assets that they've collected the past couple years. But I do think they'll try to do something to make a push. But as I said, if they don't, and if they fall out of this thing, I think you're looking at maybe trying to sell Assad if you can get something for him, even though he's got that year left on his deal next year. And, maybe he's gone, maybe somebody else, and a Dvorsky will come up and get some time, and then you'll see Snuggerud. So I just think it's pretty black and white, the two directions that this can go.
I'm totally with you. Like, if this team goes 500 in the month of January, I don't think you're going to see any acquisitions. I think you'll see a sell. Because, like we mentioned, like, January is at least an ideal opportunity for you to go on a win streak, whereas end of February, beginning of March, I think out of the Four Nations tournament, you play 3 games in 5 days or 5 games in 7 days, something like that. Wow. And then March is just, you're on the road playing a couple of back-to-backs. You stay in LA, you're traveling. You got a gauntlet of a schedule against really tough opponents. This stretch you're about to go into, Anaheim, Columbus, Calgary, not saying that they're bad opponents, but you kind of have to capitalize on this. And if you don't, I don't think you're going to see any buying for this team, because what's the point? If you're not going to be in it, or if you're hoping that you can make a late push, but it's going to be like miraculous, then you put your younger players in that position rather than go out there. Here's the thing that I just ask when people say, like, oh, can they be buyers? Should they go out there and buy people? What are you giving up?
Right.
Because I know everybody will say, well, trade Brandon Saad. Well, you don't trade a player that you think is underperforming to bring something in that makes your team better, because the other team has to agree upon that.
Right.
Like, you only have a first-round draft pick, I think, in this upcoming draft, and then a fifth-round pick, I think.
Jumps, right?
Yeah, second, third, and fourth are gone. So you're trading future picks, which aren't as valuable as this year's draft, because this is the year's draft that everybody's looking at. And I don't think, at least hearing Doug Armstrong talk, they're not trading any of these guys that they view as a part of the future. So I know people want to go get the big and shiny toy that's out there that could be different for this team. I don't know how you're acquiring that, because you're not going to give up the assets that it's going to be necessary to get.
Well, also, too, guys, wouldn't you probably save any sort of big move for the offseason when there's potential for the salary cap to increase as well? Wouldn't that play into it as well, or no?
Yeah, and most of these moves are made in the offseason anyway. I think the way the Blues are trying to do this thing is that, there's moves like Broberg and Holloway, and those are off-season type moves. I know I'm kind of repeating what we're saying here, but I always look at it like this. If you get, let's say they had a second-round pick, you give that second-round pick to go get, I'm just going to make up Michael Granlund that I mentioned in the article you guys have mentioned on the show. Could he help you at the second-line center? Yeah. But at the end of the season, when you either miss the playoffs by 3 points or you get knocked out in the first round, was it really worth it?
Yeah.
So I always think that playoff experience for everybody, the Jake Neighbors, the Bolduc, that's going to help, right? So, but if you miss the playoffs by 3 and you coughed up a second-round pick to get Granlund, and then he's a UFA, and now he's gone, what are you doing here?
Right. Then you're just spinning your wheels, right? I mean, there's no point to that.
Yeah, and you're clogging a spot for a guy that you're hoping is going to be taking that spot next year, and you gave up a second-round pick for it to get you, 2 or 3 more wins? And if you're in the position that you need, and here's the thing, going back to what you said at the beginning, Donnie, I do still think there's a chance this Blues team makes the playoffs. I think it comes down to one spot, and I think there's 5 teams fighting for it. It's that last wild card spot in the Western Conference. I don't think anybody's catching up to Colorado or Dallas that have that top wild card spot, and nobody's catching Minnesota or Winnipeg. So it comes down to Vancouver, St. Louis, Calgary, Utah, Seattle, Anaheim. You got 6 teams fighting for one spot. That's what it's going to come down to. All of these teams, if you look at their last 10, have been 500 players. So who is going to take it and run with it? And this is the perfect opportunity to do it. If you can come out of this 5-6 games above 500 after the month of January going into the Four Nations tournament, my belief is you've put yourself in the driver's seat compared to those other teams because you just beat them.
And that's the thing, Donnie. The Blues, 500 now, 19-4. Joey's pointed this out. I had it in the article. Last year, the second wild card, the Vegas Golden Knights, the second wild card was 16 games over 500. Can you imagine the work you need to do to get from 19 to 16 games over 500? But I'll say this, as much as you hear people in St. Louis say, wow, this isn't a playoff team, and I don't disagree. They need to be a crap ton more consistent. Boom. To prove that they even should be in that conversation. But guess what? The exact same things are being said in Vancouver, Utah, and Calgary. The exact same things. That's what's so disappointing for a Blues fan to see what happened in these past 2 games because it's there. It's there for you to be in that spot.
And look at those teams. Sorry, Donnie, I know you're on a hot streak, but look at those teams. Vancouver's probably trading one of their 2 stars right now in Pettersson or JT Miller. Calgary went into the season saying that this is a rebuild, and then they played well and still probably going to be shipping assets out. Utah has underperformed. Anaheim isn't even supposed to be here. And Seattle's kind of middling around like you are. None of these teams have taken it yet.
And that's why I was frantically waving my arms. It's just because...
I thought you were making a pass at me.
but it's just there has been an opportunity in the last week or so for the Blues to make up some ground, and it's just very frustrating to me that they haven't. Definitely want to ask about the 9 Blues prospects that were at the World Juniors. Guys, can you give me some highlights, some reasons for Blues fans to be very optimistic? And also, too, one of the craziest parts to me in keeping up with this World Juniors tournament, because I haven't been keeping up with player individual performances as much as countries, is just seeing the insane backlash against Team Canada by Canadians. It is like they're eating their own kind of thing. It's friggin' crazy. It's like they were rooting against the team. Nuts, just nuts.
Can't lose hockey in Canada.
Dude, but the United States wins the second year in a row, so that's fantastic. But guys, give me some highlights. Give me some more reasons for us to be excited about Blues players in the future.
Well, do you like Gustav Forsling, Donnie?
Well, I like that name.
Well, if you read JR's piece on The Athletic, which you probably didn't.
This time I didn't.
There you go.
Neither did I.
Damn,
Scott,
neither did I.
Scott kind of wrote this one. I just
it was JR and Scott's. I read it, guys, but Scott said that the Sweden coach was like, Theo Lindstein, he's got a little Gustav Forsling in him. That was I like player comps, and that's a pretty good one.
Very good.
Yeah, and just a good performance by a few of these guys. Yeah, as you mentioned, there was 9 of them. Stancil,
52 points that they put up.
yeah, combined. Stancil, did he lead the tournament with 7 goals, or did he get to 8?
Yeah, no,
in
I
that
think
last
he led with 7 goals, but he was tied in points, I think, with Dvorsky and then that Sandin Palika from Sweden.
Yeah, and then Dvorsky. I mean, that's the guy who's closest in terms of being here, so might as well focus on him. As 5 goals, 9 points, 5 games. And I like Doug Armstrong yesterday in the Zoom. He said that he started off the tournament by giving a guy a whack and
Cross-check.
small of the back, like, hey, I'm here. And then, you'd like to see that from the skill guys. So, he's going to go back to the American Hockey League, and this is just a year of growth. As Doug said yesterday, does he want to be in the NHL? For sure, they all do, but they understand the process and the foundation and the staying power is going to be there more so if they continue to let him develop. Be a great tournament.
And with the exception of Dvorsky, I think it's important to let people know, you're still a couple of years away from seeing these guys. At least it sounds like Tim Taylor's perspective, and this could change, is that the 2 kids in Sweden, Stenberg and Lindstein, they're going to be going to Sweden possibly for 1 more year. So you're away from that. Stancil, this is his first year playing in juniors hockey, and I know everyone's excited about that, but you're typically a couple years away from seeing these guys. I think Doug even mentioned, you're probably going to see these guys again perform in the World Juniors next year, which is great, but, when you see Dvorsky dominate his age group for 2 consecutive years, that's what gets you excited about another year of Stancil doing it. That Juracek had a good tournament, the 2 kids in Sweden. So you start to get a little bit more amped up for those players.
Hey, let's try to come up with some things. Okay, so these guys are going to make an impact for the Blues. I'm not talking about Dvorsky. He's going to be here soon. But the rest of them, your 13-year-old son will be driving when these guys make an impact for the Blues.
It's impossible, JR, because that means it's 13 years away if I have another kid and if it's a boy, which none of those 2 scenarios are going to happen.
I'm talking 3
already
years.
Got 3 of them, damn it.
I'm talking 3 or 4 years. Don't you know the math? 13 to 16 or 17.
No.
Okay, the Cardinals will be relevant again when these guys are making an impact.
Wow.
For the Blues.
Okay.
Are you asking or are you telling? Because
I don't know,
would
that feels like a
disagree with
far
that.
I'm trying to get you guys to come up with some other things. Like, what's going to happen before these guys get to the point where they're.
Well, I will seriously not have any more hair on my head. For
Might have
real.
less.
That's what I'm saying. I will not. I'll be JR in it. Just.
I can confidently say
I
will
turn
not.
this on me.
Wait, I got to get something out of this friggin' podcast.
Hey guys, come up with
I've been
something.
taking friggin' darts from you guys all goddamn podcast.
Say Lower Arnold. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Lower Arnold. I will have no more kids by the time these guys are relevant for the Blues team. That's a fact.
So, but it's a couple years from seeing these guys. But what about a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud? Do you think he misses the whole AHL train altogether and goes from Minnesota directly to St. Louis?
So I loved Doug's comments about them going to dinner with Snuggerud in Minnesota because he told him, here's the ultimate prize. You go win the Frozen Four in St. Louis, pack a big bag, and then stay in St. Louis with us. Here's the only thing. That tournament is the 10th to the 12th. And or the 10th and the 11th. That's the Frozen Four tournament. The Blues only have 1 game at the end of that. It's a home game, which is great, and it's on the 12th, but that's it.
But then the playoffs. I'm getting
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe the playoffs. But yes, that would be awesome. That's what Matthew Nyes did for Toronto, wasn't he? He played 2 games for them and then made the playoffs. But if they don't make the playoffs, the AHL plays 2 more games in their regular season before their season's over. So I guess you could get a little taste of the NHL and AHL. You hope that the playoffs are there. The question that I would have is if you don't have the playoffs, if you're out of it by that point, do they still sign him and trying to get him play 1 game? Or do you say, hey, let's sign you after the season so you got a whole training camp and then you don't have to worry about that 1 game?
Oh, I can't believe I got to start writing that
Project.
story again. Oh, my God.
Come on, man. You're just in Minnesota. Project,
And
JR.
I did catch up with him, and I did sit down in the office of the Gophers coach there and talk to him about Jimmy Snuggerud, and he said he's really progressed. Some of the areas that he talked about working on when he said he'd go back to Minnesota. He's gotten better. He's become a leader. I'll just give you one quick tidbit. I have it in my story coming up here. He said a lot of young players like a Jimmy Snuggerud, that they want to be comfortable. They want to be with the same line mates on the same line and have the same guy setting them up. And he said, we've had so many injuries that I've just looked at Jimmy and said, hey, next shift, you're getting a different center. Hey, next shift, you're playing on this line. Hey, and he said he just rolls with it, doesn't say a word. He said the progress he's made in terms of being that type of guy has been really good. And he also said that the consistency, Jimmy Snuggerud last year, hat trick, no goal for a couple games, hat trick. This year, point.
Yeah.
So they really like the consistency from Jimmy Snuggerud.
That's pretty impressive, by the way, that he's doing that and he's got 11 goals and 28 points playing with different centers every single shift.
And it just seems like everything that this kid says, from when he announced that he was going back to Minnesota and not signing pro, like everything he says, it just sounds like a freaking winner that you want on your hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
Like having him and Jake Neighbors together, that gets me high on the Blues.
Oh,
you know what I mean? It
High on your own supply.
Absolutely so. And also, I just want to clarify. It's not as though I don't think that the Blues can make the playoffs. I think that they can. It's just getting really freaking frustrating with this up and down BS. And, man, I want to freaking see him go on a goddamn tear.
Scotty Bowman told me never to lie, Donnie. So don't lie.
Name dropper.
Man, I'm just name dropping all day today. Look at me, guys.
I wasn't lying there
Yeah,
at
you're
all.
honest there.
Also, too, I want to ask this real quick before we get out of here. I believe that it was either AHL or Springfield, like the player of the week. Was that Kamaki?
Kaskamaki.
Kaskamaki.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about him?
I'm trying not to do the name dropping thing down because now I'm like consistent with it. But like at least people that are with the AHL, like I think they've been most surprised by him. On top of like how Dvorsky's played, like they love the way that this kid has played.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like a perfect third or fourth line center in terms of like he's physical, he's got the goal scoring ability, he goes to the net. Like they really like this guy, and I don't think you'll see him at this year, but maybe if you're out of it, you get a little taste, kind of like what last year was. But I think this guy. A lot of people were excited about Zach Dean, and I think Zach Dean's had like an injury that's kept him out all season. Like only played like 3 games.
Oh wow!
I think what Zach Dean was. What's that?
I think knee.
Was that what it is?
Thank you.
Yeah, he's played 3 games and he hasn't played since. I think what people thought Zach Dean was going to be is kind of what Kaskamaki has looked like this season.
Very good, and he was a high draft pick 3 years ago.
Second or third round.
Because he's somebody that you have been sprinkling in when we talk about these prospects over the course of the last year or so. So when I saw his name, I thought, wow, this is, seems like this might be kind of sort of coming to fruition, or this guy kind of, finding himself.
That one, and there's this Dylan Peterson cat who played with Macklin Celebrini in college last year. I liked him too. I think he's got like 8 or 9 goals so far for the Thunderbirds. Big dude that just goes out there and throws his body around.
Is he a defenseman or is
No,
he
he's
a forward? Is he a forward?
Yeah.
But that dude looks like a house.
Yeah, he's like 6'5".
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and please.
Reminds me a lot of what Backus was in that first year in the minors, where it was just like this big tank of a dude that just goes around and hits people. He's got like 5 different fights on top of like getting 8 or 9 goals he's got on the season. So.
Hey, Alex, here's our thing for today.
Okay.
As we wrap up.
God.
Hey, for the next couple of days, let's, in our conversations with people, I was talking to Donnie Fandango.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see who stops. No way.
Who
You know
you
him?
actually recognize?
Yeah, like you're name dropping Donnie Fandango in front of us. Like this.
Who?
I'm gonna name drop Donnie all
Who?
day.
Or here's another one. You still do radio? You still on the radio?
I'm gonna go pick up food from Chipotle later.
I had
Like,
this-
I'll pick it up for Donnie Fandango.
I had this friggin' guy that lives
still
near
do
me,
radio.
and I'm out for my walk, and I live at the top of this immense freaking hill, all right? When I walk up this hill, I'm earning it, all right? It is friggin' brutal. So one of my neighbors, he stops. How's it going? What's going on? You still on the point?
Oh my!
I think before sometimes you ask a question, you should, maybe think about the question that you're going to ask.
Yeah.
And then he kept continuing to ask me about a topic that I was unwilling to talk about. And he brought it up again after I was like,
What did he just start walking with you?
No. So he stopped me as I was at his driveway. Right? I was, and then I'm trying to do this thing, so I keep myself moving and letting him know, hey, I don't want to stay here very long.
Yeah.
So he keeps bringing up this topic that I don't want to talk about. And then I'm like, okay, man, I'm leaving. And then I just walk away as he's talking, because I was like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? All right. Anywho, gentlemen, I just am so happy that I got to see your faces today.
Yeah, same.
Jeremy, when do you get to take a nap, buddy boy?
I did. I started about 20 minutes ago.
Whoa, hey, that was when I started talking. Easy over there, big guy. Come on, man.
Big guy. Now I got no hair and big guy. You guys are...
What I feel so great about
that
is nobody takes shots at me.
I'm going back to Minnesota.
No, you're not.
I'm playing defense the whole podcast. I can't think of
I'm playing
offensive
offense.
insults. All right. For my jerky, but very nice. I can't call him jerky. I don't even mean that. For my dudes, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, our friggin' homeboy Jeff Burton, who we miss a ton, and also want to give a shout out to his brand new grandbaby. It is the Last Minute Blues podcast. I'm Donnie Fandango. Thanks for listening, and let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues Podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.